Hello, welcome to This Side of the Ceiling. I'm Kelsey.
And I'm Jill. And we're two good friends trying to live this life on this side of the ceiling as abundantly as Christ has called us to.
We are by no means experts, but we love to study His Word and share everything that He has revealed and taught us.
So come along with us as we open up the scriptures and dive into His wonderful Word.
Hey, welcome again to This Side of the Ceiling. We are still in Ephesians.
That's right.
Just the beginning of Ephesians, and we've gotten to Ephesians chapter 2, but we've noticed in this section that we want to talk more tonight about kind of a theme.
Yeah, there's some themes that Paul brings out in Ephesians that are worth stopping and pondering about.
Right. Yeah, and tonight, or today, I guess, we're going to talk about peace. And so I want to open it up. I want people to think about, what do you think about when we say the word peace? So, Jill, what would you think about when we say peace?
I mean, my first thought goes to everybody's okay in my family. We're all healthy. Mm-hmm. Everyone is getting along, and that things are rocking along smoothly.
Right. Yeah. And it's exactly what we think about. We think about peaceful places, sitting by the calm water and listening to the waterfall, or
being outside.
Yeah, sitting in the sand, or
not being in a
wherever.
hurry. Yeah.
Right. So that's not really where we're going.
That's shallow,
this.
Isn't it?
Well,
yes.
I don't know that it's shallow. It's just not what Paul's talking about. Right?
That's right.
Right. And sometimes it's not really what Jesus is referring to. He's talking about peace. And so I want to start in Philippians chapter 4, verses 6 and 7, where it talks about peace. It says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ." So I love these verses. In fact, I quote them a lot to myself because it doesn't just give us what not to do when we're anxious, because it says don't be anxious, but it tells us what to do instead. And it says pray and petition. So pray and ask.
Right.
And it says cover that with thanksgiving. And then it says present your requests to God. So give them talk to God about. And then it says that's when the peace of God is something that transcends all understanding. Like, we will not be able to understand the peace that we have in the midst of probably anxiety or turmoil. And so it will transcend the understanding, and it will guard. This peace guards. It guards our hearts. It guards our minds. And those are really the two places that need guarding when I'm anxious. And so we're talking tonight more about peace of God. And so it's a peace that shows up in the middle of a non-peaceful situation.
Right, our circumstances.
Right.
Regardless of our circumstances.
Yeah. And so we can have peace in circumstances. Sure, peaceful river, peaceful walk. But this is something bigger than that. Bigger than circumstances. And so, in the Old Testament, in Numbers, they used to pray the blessing. The priest used to pray the blessing. And it says, the Lord said to Moses, tell Aaron, tell the priest, this is how they're to pray. And he says, this is how you are to bless the Israelites. Say to them, the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. And that word that's used there is the word shalom. And it ended up in this community being a greeting. Shalom. They would say shalom, which meant God give you peace. And so I think, this is a word that's not just the absence of conflict, but it is the presence of flourishing, all as it should be. So when we have that peace, it doesn't matter what's going on around us, everything as it should be inside. And so that's kind of what we're talking about tonight, of peace inside of us. But Jesus also talks about peace, and he talks about it in a world that's not peaceful. And in John 16, verse 33, he says, let me turn here. He says, I have told you these things. So he's talking to his disciples about what's coming. And he says, I've told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world. And so Jesus is very honest with them. The world is, you're going to have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world. In me you will have peace. And then in John chapter 14, he says, peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled and do not be afraid. And so when he talks about peace, he's not talking about the world's peace. He's talking about the peace that he leaves.
Yeah, and that peace that he gives us is the Holy Spirit. It goes on to say in that next verse 26, that I don't give you, not as the world gives you peace, but as I give you peace. And Jesus gives us himself and the Holy Spirit. And that's what we're going to look at in Ephesians. That's the connection with Ephesians. So I want to turn over to Ephesians in chapter 2. And the beginning of chapter 2, we talked about last time. So I want to direct our thoughts more to verse 11 in chapters 2. And in verse 11, it says that, remember at one time, you Gentiles were alienated from Christ, and you were separated, and you were not you're strangers to the covenant of promise, and you didn't have hope, and you were without God in the world. And Paul reminds us that, hey, he's talking to these Gentiles, and he says, you had a problem. There was a time where you were far from God. You were not part of the chosen. And then he says in verse 13, but now in Christ Jesus, you who once were far off have been brought near by the blood of Christ. For he himself is our peace, who has made us both one and has broken down in his flesh the dividing wall of hostility by abolishing the law of commandments expressed in ordinances, that he might create in himself one new man in place of the two, so making peace, and might reconcile us both to God in one body through the cross, thereby killing the hostility. And he came and he preached peace to you who were far off, and peace to those who were near. For through him we both have access in one spirit to the Father. So Jesus says a powerful thing. Jesus breaks down the wall of hostility between the Jews and the Gentiles. And Paul says Jesus himself is our peace.
Right.
And I think that is such a very important thing, because I think we are tempted to fill in a lot of other blanks of what our peace is. You know, you fill in the blanket. Blank is not my peace. Jesus is my peace. For example, I could say, my getting it all together, that's not my peace. Jesus is my peace.
Yeah.
You know, my family is not my peace. Jesus is my peace.
Yeah. My health is not my peace.
That's right.
Jesus is my peace.
Yeah, my financial situation. Whatever. There's so many things that we're tempted to think, if this would just happen, then I would be peaceful.
Or not happen.
Or not happen. Absolutely. And so what we're learning here is that Jesus is our peace. And like you were reading in John, it's not a peace, it's different. It's not a peace that the world offers. But we have our biggest need, is our deepest need, is to have peace with God. And what we hear in Ephesians 2 is that Jesus provides that. Jesus, because he came down and lived a sinless life, and because of his death on the cross, he allowed us to have peace with God. And whether we understand it or not, that's our greatest need, is to have peace with God. And so here, Paul says it very clearly. Jesus is our peace. Our peace is a person. And that is, when we have that peace with God, it allows that to we can live in that peace and that love and that joy, and it can spill over into our life regardless of circumstances. You know, Jesus also, I want to keep reading in Ephesians because it goes on to talk about us. You know, we just said Jesus provides to both Jews and Gentiles access to the Spirit, one Spirit. And then in verse 19, he says, so then you are no longer strangers and aliens. You are fellow citizens with the saints, members of the household of God, built on the foundation of the apostles and prophets, Christ Jesus himself being the cornerstone, in whom the whole structure, being joined together, grows into a holy temple in the Lord. In him you also are being built together into a dwelling place for God by the Spirit. I want to say that again because I think that's so important. It says, in him you also are being built together into a dwelling place for God. If Jesus is our peace, then peace is a person and we are a place for that person to dwell.
Right.
And I think that is so important for us to understand that Jesus is peace, but in order to access that peace, he has to dwell inside us.
Right.
And so he's created a way for his people for his Spirit to live inside us. Peace is a place, and peace is a person, and we are the place for that
Right.
person to dwell.
You know, even the angels, when Jesus was born, declared glory in the highest, peace on earth.
That's right.
So-
That's right. From the very, very beginning. You know, and there's so many scriptures. I'm thinking about Romans 5, the very first verse, that since we've been justified by faith, we have peace with God through Jesus. I think when you start seeing this, it's everywhere. But there is a point where Jesus himself, I think it's in Matthew 10:34, where he says, I didn't come to bring peace. And so I think we should address that.
Yeah.
Because Jesus is our peace. But I think what he's saying here is Jesus brings peace with God, but when we truly live out what he's called us to, we're going to have some conflict with people in the world. And he is not bashful about saying, in this world, you're going to have conflict. We're called to die to ourselves. And when we live this way, we're going to have some enemies. And so, you don't have to look very far. In fact, Paul is going to be in prison really soon and die. Most of the apostles died not a peaceful death. But that's not where their peace was. They knew that their peace is a person and that they are a place where that person dwells.
Thanks for listening and journeying with us on this side of the ceiling. See you next time.